Hello my fellow hirelings of House Telvanni, I'm Neloth, and today I want to introduce to you my Bal Molagmer build, a Robin Hood-like thief that steals from the rich and gives to the poor, and utilizes the full power of the Heartstones found in Solstheim to create Ash Guardians. This character is the personification of a minor faction in Morrowind called the Bal Molagmer, also known as the Stonefire Men. There is scarcely any information on this faction, but what I did find from the Elder Scrolls wiki and my time playing the Thieves Guild in Morrowind inspired me to create this very unique role-playing build where you tackle crime and thievery in a very different, selfless way. Before I begin, let me state as always that there are timestamps down below to make navigating the video much easier, and also note that this character should be seen as a template, and you should feel free to make whatever changes you wish. Now, let us learn about the Bal Molagmer. The Bal Molagmer's story begins when she was 16 years old, living as an orphan and a pickpocket in Blacklight with her older brother. This Dunmerry girl, who would one day become the Bal Molagmer, and her brother were very good at stealing drakes from unsuspecting passerbys, but they always made sure to only steal enough to get by. However, one day they were caught picking a man's pocket by 3 Redoran guards and were immediately hauled away to the city prisons. Supposedly, the man they tried to rob was a noble of House Redoran, and so the sentence for their crime was going to be rather high. They both sat in prison comforting each other, believing it was going to be the end, until a hooded man wearing a brown cloak with extravagant gloves walked into the prison and handed a large pouch of drakes to the jailer and pointed at the cell containing the Dunmerry girl and her brother. The jailer then proceeded to open the door and nervously told them to leave. The Dunmerry girl and her brother followed them to a rundown tavern where the man revealed himself to be an old wood elf who was a member of the Bal Molagmer. In the history of Morrowind, there was a legend about the Stonefire Men, who brought the light of justice to the land. These Stonefire Men, also called the Bal Molagmer in Dark Elvish, were thieves that stole from the unjust and rich, and gave to the poor and others in need, and they also carried burning stones from Red Mountain using special gloves. This group vanished in the early Third Era. However, towards the end of the Third Era, a Red Guard named Gentleman Jim Stacy reformed the Bal Molagmer to be a sub-faction of the Thieves Guild that helps as many of the downtrodden as possible. The Dunmerry girl and her brother heard about the Bal Molagmer, but always assumed them to be a myth. The old wood elf laughed and proceeded to take out 2 molten stone rocks that had cooled over time and handed them to the siblings. He revealed that he had watched over the siblings since they were kids, watching as they successfully stole only enough to eat day after day, and the old wood elf believed they were worthy candidates of joining the Bal Molagmer, and then he asked if they were prepared to join. The Dunmerry girl and her brother looked at each other with smiles and officially became members of the Bal Molagmer. For 6 years, the Dunmerry girl, who is now known as the Bal Molagmer, along with her brother, stole thousands of drakes from the unjust and giving it to individuals in need, only keeping scraps of what they earned for survival. Occasionally, the Bal Molagmer would even be contracted for special contracts, like returning lockets to their owners, uncovering corruption in the great houses, and donating stolen books to poor libraries. However, one fateful day, the Bal Molagmer received a contract to steal an old Daedric warhammer from a Redoran vault and return it to the rightful owner. The vault that carried the warhammer was extensive and would need to be a 3-man job to complete. The Bal Molagmer gathered her brother and her old wood elf mentor, and they set off for the Redoran vault, casing the area and devising a plan to break in. When breaking through the vault, the trio used their separate skills to successfully break in. The wood elf disarmed traps, the brother incapacitated any guards, and the Bal Molagmer used her nimble hands to pick locks on chests and doors. When the group found themselves in the vault, they found the Daedric Warhammer on a pedestal in front of large amounts of gold. They ignored the gold, and the Bal Molagmer's brother took the Warhammer. However, as the Warhammer was removed, multiple Dremora were summoned behind them, and it was only then did they realize that the Warhammer was cursed by whichever Redoran stole it. The Wood Elf shouted at the Bal Molagmer and her brother to run, and he threw his burning stone at the Dremora to distract them. Without hesitation, the Bal Molagmer and her brother ran and did not look back, even as they heard the screams of their mentor and friend. As they ran, they drew the attention of multiple Redoran archers, who shot volleys of arrows at the pair. However, they did not stop running. Eventually, the pair escaped the guards and hid in a nearby cave. When the Bal Molagmer used her burning stone to light a fire, she saw that her brother had an arrow in the side of his neck and was bleeding out, only alive by pure adrenaline. The Bal Molagmer held her brother in her arms until he passed, and buried him right outside the cave, using his burning stone as a centerpiece for his gravestone. After spending multiple days in the cave grieving and planning her next move, she brought the Daedric Warhammer she stole to the rightful owner, and delivered it with honor in the name of the Bal Molagmer, just as her mentor and brother would have wanted. She then packed what little she had and left Morrowind, out of fear that she would be found by House Redoran. She made her way to Cyrodiil and then went into the mountains towards Skyrim, where she was captured by Imperial soldiers, and you know the rest. Now it is time for the role-playing. When the Bal Molagmer is captured and carted off to Helgen, she will feel sadness but also contentment. However, when the dragon shows up, her reality is shattered and is left with utter confusion. She will escape Helgen with Ralof, not feeling comfortable around the Imperials who reminded her of the Redoran Guard, and will immediately help Jarl Balgruf the Greater, but will also stop in Riverwood to help the local populace, like Lucan Valerius with the Golden Claw, Faendal with Camilla, and Hod with chopping wood. When she discovers that she is the Dragonborn, the Bal Molagmer believes that it is a sign from the gods to continue her work in private as the Bal Molagmer, but in public as the last Dragonborn, helping anyone in need. Because of this, you will definitely want to complete the main quest and defeat Alduin, but make sure to spare Paarthurnax, as he will be a good mentor and a reminder of an old wood elf friend that she knew. You will also want to complete any miscellaneous quests for people around Skyrim, especially if it involves retrieving an item like Draben's bow in Riften to Noster's helm in Solitude. Another quest line you will want to do is the Thieves Guild quest. However, because the Thieves Guild in Skyrim is much more morally gray compared to others, you will definitely want to play it differently, never killing anyone on the job, screw over Maven Blackbriar, a corrupt businesswoman, even if you lose out on pay, and also do only extra jobs that involve stealing from the rich and unjust. If you have difficulties getting quests to steal from specific people, I would recommend just doing Bedlam jobs for Delvin and heist jobs for Vex. The College of Winterhold should also be joined, but only really for training certain skills and spells we will talk about later. Aside from those two guilds I have mentioned, you can also join the Companions and the Dawn Guard as well, because of how much they help people. However, you will not want to join the Dark Brotherhood or the Volkihar clan because they simply go against everything the Bal Molagmer stands for. When arriving on Solstheim, you will want to do the Dragonborn storyline and also assist the sexy Master Neloth as much as possible to unlock the Ash Guardians, which are key to this build, and also hoard as many Heartstones as possible because we will roleplay that they are the burning stones that the Bal Molagmer were famous for carrying around. Assisting Ravenrock and House Redoran will also be ideal. The Bal Molagmer will be very cold and unsympathetic towards the Redoran at first because of her previous encounter that cost her her mentor and brother, but she will see the good in the leader of Ravenrock, Counselor Laeral Morvain, and will become much more sympathetic towards their cause. When it comes to the Daedra, the Bal Molagmer will only assist those who are seen as good or neutral, like Meridia and Azura. While the Bal Molagmer has a similar sounding name to Molag Bal, remember that she is not a worshipper of Molag Bal, and that entire quest should be avoided. If you have the Winter Sun mod that allows you to worship gods more in depth, I would recommend worshipping either Azura or Mara, depending on if you want to go down a imperialistic path or a more Dunmerry traditionalist path. When it comes to housing, I would recommend living in either Breezehome or the Creation Club house called the Tundra Homestead outside of Whiterun, as they are rather simplistic houses and fit the Bal Molagmer perfectly, as she cares little for materialistic possessions. When you're not questing in Skyrim, just remember who the Bal Molagmer truly are, and always steal from the unjust and rich in your spare time, and give portions of what you earn and steal to the poor and needy. I would also utilize the reverse pickpocketing mechanic in the game to give the downtrodden valuable objects like jewelry and gold. Reverse pickpocketing is a feature scantily used in Skyrim because it holds no real purpose, but roleplaying this character will finally have it in use. Aside from all of that, just remember that while you are a stealth character, you are still morally good and will want to help as many people as possible in the name of the Bal Molagmer. Now for the race stats and standing stone. So obviously the Bal Molagmer is a Dunmer. While the Bal Molagmer were a sub-faction of the Imperial Thieves Guild in Morrowind, they were originally purely Dunmerry, and I wanted to keep that with this character. However, you can really play as any other race if you wish, as long as you change the backstory just a little. I would recommend either a Redguard or a Wood Elf if you have Dunmer phobia. When it comes to stats, you will want to invest with a ratio of 3 in Magicka, 1 in Health, and 1 in Stamina. However, once you reach about 300 Magicka in either leveling or enchantments, I would just level equally in Health and Stamina. For the Standing Stone, you will want to initially start with the Thief Stone and then progress to either the Shadow Stone or the Tower Stone. And now for the skills and perks. The Bal Molagmer will be utilizing the skills Archery, Conjuration, Illusion, Sneak, Pickpocket, and Enchanting. So I will now go over what perks I would recommend having in each skill at around level 50, and then explain my reasonings. However, some won't really need much of an explanation. For Archery, you will want to get all levels in Overdraw, Eagle Eye, both levels of Steady Hand, Power Shot, and Quick Shot. This skill will boost the main weapon of the Bal Molagmer, which will be a Daedric bow that is enchanted to deal fire damage. For Conjuration, you will want to acquire Novice to Expert Conjuration. You will also take 1 level in Summoner, Atromancy, Elemental Potency, and Twin Souls. This skill will be key for the Bal Molagmer, as she will use the Heartstones to summon Ash Guardians as either a distraction to disappear or support to take down stronger foes in combat. For Illusion, you will want to take Animage, Kindred Mage, and Quiet Casting. This tree is solely used for acquiring Quiet Casting and will not be really using any spells in the Illusion tree. Spamming the Muffle spell and buying training from Drevis Nellerin at the College of Winterhold will probably be required to level up this skill proficiently. For Sneak, take all 5 in Stealth, Backstab, and Deadly Aim, solely for making this stealth build more, well, you guessed it, stealthy. For Pickpocket, we will only take all 5 in Light Fingers. None of the other skills will be truly necessary, and the skills along with the enchantments we will have for our armor will be good enough for pickpocketing and reverse pickpocketing. In light armor, we will just have 2 levels in Agile Defender. Because this is a stealth build, you really shouldn't be getting hit much, and your Ash Guardians or whatever Atronachs you can spare at the time will be taking most of your enemy's attention anyways. Still, the minor armor rating boost is helpful when in dire situations. Lastly, for enchanting, you will want to take all 5 in Enchanter, Fire Enchanter, Insightful Enchanter, Corpus Enchanter, and Extra Effect. If you plan on going above level 50 with this character, I would also recommend investing in smithing to increase the damage of your Daedric bow. Now for weapons and armor. For weapons, you will just want to have a Daedric bow to take down enemies from a distance. The Bal Molagmer isn't a bloodthirsty killer, so she shouldn't need to slaughter everyone in her path. If there are too many enemies or a clear way to pass through your enemies, then that bow will definitely come in handy. Now, while not a requirement for this build, I would also recommend finding or crafting fire arrows found in the Arcane Archer Creation Club mod, which will further enhance the fire damage of your bow and show off the fire part of being a stone fire man. However, it really isn't essential because the bow will already be enchanted with fire damage. Now for armor. There really is no image to base the Bal Molagmer off of. However, I opted to go with the Netch leather armor available in the Creation Club, which will require you to do both a minor quest and an additional objective taking you to Fort Hrogstad. The only exception will be the gloves, which will be the Mystic Tuning gloves you get while doing Drevis's quest in Winterhold. When you complete the quest, he will take the gloves back, however you can always pickpocket them from his inventory. Keep in mind that these gloves cannot be enchanted, so if that is a deal breaker, you can always go with the Mythic Dawn gloves found in the Mythic Dawn Museum in Dawnstar. When you get to a decent enchantment level, you will want to enchant your armor with the following. Netch Leather Helmet will have Fortify Archery. Netch Leather Armor will have Fortify Conjuration. Netch Leather Boots will have Fortify Sneak. The ring slot you will want to have Fortify Pickpocket, and the necklace slot you will want to have Fortify Pickpocket. If you decide to use the Mythic Dawn gloves instead of the Mystic Tuning gloves, I would recommend either Fortify Pickpocket or Fortify Archery. The reason why I chose to have Pickpocket fortified to the Deadlands and back is simply to make pickpocketing and reverse pickpocketing easier, as this isn't really a combat-focused character. However, feel free to mix and match these enchantments as you please. Now for spells and shouts. For spells, the core of this build that separates it from others will be the Ash Guardian that will fully unlock the potential of the Bal Molagmer. You get the Ash Guardian spell from Neloth in Solstheim, and because it is an expert spell, it will take some time before unlocking it. So before that, I would recommend the Flame Atronach and the Storm Atronach, as they have similar representations to the Stonefire Men, with the Flame Atronach representing fire and the Storm Atronach representing stone. The only other spells you will be utilizing as the Bal Molagmer is only Muffle for certain situations, but mostly just to level Illusion quickly to get the Quiet Casting perk as early as possible, so when you summon an Ash Guardian, everyone isn't lasered on your location. For shouts, I would recommend using the underutilized Throw Voice Shout to distract enemies and get them to move if they are possibly in your line of sight. The Slow Time Shout will be exceptionally useful for lining up shots as well as evading any arrows and swords that may be coming your way. Cyclone will be useful to throw enemies into the sky and onto the ground, giving the Bal Molagmer ample opportunity to make whatever move she wishes. The Disarm Shout can also be useful for the same context. And lastly, the Aura Whisper Shout will be useful when infiltrating manors or museums to get a good read on where the owners and guards are to make sure you will never get caught off guard ever again. The perfect thing about all of these shouts as well is that with the Quiet Casting perk in the Illusion Tree, even your shouts will become silent, further enhancing your infiltration capabilities. And now for the playstyle and combat. As I have already stated, the Bal Molagmer is not entirely a combat-focused build, and will be much happier evading enemies rather than killing. However, combat in Skyrim can be unavoidable, and so you have two weapons at your disposal, the bow and the Ash Guardians. Anytime you wish to clear a room, simply crouch, summon your Ash Guardians, and simply pick off any stragglers with your bow, and that's really it. While simplistic, you can also utilize the shouts I recommended to get really creative with your approaches. Just remember that it isn't necessary to kill everyone you see. Because you will be summoning the Ash Guardians so much, you will need to carry a large number of Heartstones that can be found on Solstheim. The Heartstones are necessary to keep the Ash Guardians on your side and not hostile to everyone. However, because you will have such a high sneak skill, you could just summon an Ash Guardian without a Heartstone and move on, because the Guardians simply won't ever see you. But this is only if you run out of Heartstones because they, well, don't really grow on trees. They are simply designed to be used in the role-playing of the Firestone Men, aka the Bal Molagmer. And lastly, as I said in the role-playing, make sure in between quests and combat to steal from the rich and give to the poor, either by sliding some gold ingots in their dresser or putting some gold rings in their pockets. And that is the Bal Molagmer, a Morrowind-themed Robin Hood character that steals from the rich and gives to the poor, while possessing Heartstones to summon Ash Guardian allies, and also having a very fire-like theme attached. While I have only made 3 builds so far, this was my favorite so far simply because of how niche this character is, and it was fun creating a character from such a small faction scene in Morrowind that many people likely have never heard of because they are just so easy to miss if you don't do the Thieves Guild quest in Morrowind for Gentleman Jim Stacy. And that is all I wrote. If you enjoyed this type of video, be sure to like the like button, like the subscribe button, and like the bell notification down below to be updated on future videos. And I will see you whenever the fuck I decide to upload again. House Telvanni be with you.
Please, O hero of Skyrim, I shall be ever so grateful.